Hello, friends, and welcome back to Elaborations with SchellingtonGrin. I'm your host and Gothic Witch Big Sis Ava, and you may have noticed that over this past week we skipped a couple of episodes. We didn't have an episode for last Friday or this Monday, and that is all because over the weekend I wound up getting two very amazing things that have changed my life for the better. One is a new vehicle, which I am so excited to have and so happy and proud to have because it is giving me so much more ability and so much more independence and helping me to live the life that I desire and deserve. And the other is a new addition to my household, and that is a beautiful and adorable baby cat. He is about 8 or 9 months old, and he has spent most of his life kind of bouncing between being an indoor and outdoor cat with my grandparents, but he is honestly so perfect, and I named him Thackery Binx because he is a little black kitty, so I named him after the cat from Hocus Pocus that if you have seen Hocus Pocus, you know that that cat isn't just a cat. But if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil it for you. I highly encourage you to watch it if you have Disney+. But this little baby has stolen my heart. However, the last few days have simply just been a whirlwind of errands between taking him to the vet and getting all of his vaccines and everything, and getting a little bit of antibiotic for him because the vet saw a little wound on his lower back. So we're treating that. And the other things that I've been having to take care of are getting him cat food, getting gas in my car, an oil change, doing some tire pressure checks because of the current weather being back and forth here in Louisiana between freezing cold temperatures to kind of spring-like temperatures because they're in the upper 70s and low 80s. And it's like, wait, it's the middle of fall, almost winter. Why are we having hot weather? But simply, I've just been a little busy with taking care of all of these other priorities. So that's why I kind of allowed myself to rest and not stress myself over doing episodes when my energy wasn't in the right space and I was focused on other things. But now that we are all caught up, let's dive into today's episode. Because today we are talking about manifestation. But no, we are not going to be talking about the social media picture perfect type of manifestation, because I want to get into what happens when things aren't flowing and when it feels like we're meeting resistance time and time again, and we're hitting wall after wall after wall. And what we can do to navigate that without giving up on our desires, or more importantly, ourselves. So, if you are able to and you would like to, I highly encourage you to grab a journal or notebook, or open that notes app on your mobile device if you would like to take notes as we go along. And as always, if you are traveling or commuting, please stay safe and obey all travel and transportation laws and rules while you are out there. And especially if you are traveling for any particular event, have fun, but stay safe. And if you are pre-traveling for the holidays, definitely stay safe, because I know that we are getting some snow in certain parts of the United States and also in certain parts of the rest of the world, and we are having some really frigid temperatures, and that is causing some flights to cancel here and there. So just be prepared and just do your best to stay calm, stay safe, and do whatever you need to do. Without any further ado, let's dive right into today's episode. When we are struggling to manifest something, it is so easy for us to want to simply give up. But I'm going to stop you before you decide to just throw in the towel. And I'm going to gently take that towel from you and invite you to sit down and simply pause and sit with that struggle for a moment. And if you can, name what that struggle is. Give it a presence so that it can sit in the room with you. Maybe it is a blockage that is coming up from this deep-seated fear of failure or a fear of success. Maybe you are simply overthinking and overworking how to make something happen. And you are trying to pressure yourself into making it go a certain way. Maybe you have this old story that you keep telling yourself about why you cannot have whatever it is that you desire. But when you give it a little acknowledgement, when you are able to acknowledge what that blockage is, what that fear is, where it's coming from, you're able to shift your perspective a little bit. Because here's the thing, manifestation isn't simply about thinking better thoughts and waiting for some sort of cosmic magic to happen. It's also about noticing where you are stuck and being willing to pivot, because sometimes the universe simply is asking you to tweak your approach and shift your energy, or it's asking you to let go of any rigid expectations that you may have about how and when something should happen for you. So how can we look at our perspectives, our actions and inactions, and the science behind manifestation? The first thing that I want you to take away from all of this is probably the biggest tip that I can give you in this episode. And that is that manifestation is not about perfection. At the end of the day, we are all human, 100%. And while some New Age teachings tell us to dissolve our humanity into pure vibration, that kind of idealistic intention is actually pretty unrealistic for so many of us. It's just as unrealistic as someone telling us to ignore our 3D. Sometimes we cannot ignore our circumstances. We can not give them too much meaning, and that is what ignore the 3D means, is to not give too much meaning to circumstances that are subject to change at any moment. But sometimes it's hard for us as humans to fully ignore something. And just as much as it's hard for us to sometimes ignore the 3D, and just as much as it can be unrealistic to do that, it is unrealistic to ignore your humanity. Because at the end of the day, you are human. You are embodied, and you are in this time and space, and that matters. Because you are fundamentally matter. Therefore, you matter. We can get into a whole spiel about that, but maybe we'll save that for another episode. But what we will get into is this, a little bit of brain science for you. Your thoughts shape and reshape your neural pathways, but they also shape and influence your actions or inactions, the things that you actually do or don't do to align or stay out of alignment with what it is that you desire. But if something isn't manifesting, maybe the message is not to give up, but it is a cue to try a different tactic. Maybe it is time to release control over the how and when, and to trust your intuition to guide your next steps. Let me give you kind of a practical example that you can use. Say you are wanting to buy a car. And you have this dream car in mind, but maybe that dream car is a little bit out of your price range for now. So what you do to be a little bit more realistic is you go ahead and go for a car that you can actually reasonably budget for, that is still in tip-top shape, that is still going to give you a bit of longevity, and you take that deal. And then you use that vehicle as kind of a stepping stone. You still take care of it, you're still thankful for it, you're still showing gratitude for it every day, for getting you to and from, but you see that car as something that is beneficial to your life right now. And then you keep that car, you keep it in good condition, you keep it in good shape, you have a positive relationship with that vehicle. You take care of it as if you would your dream car. And then eventually you get to a point where you're able to get that dream car and it's still available. Or maybe you have a newer model that is available. And guess what? They're also doing a sale at the dealership on newer models, and you're able to get lower APR and lower interest. Because you took a different path to get back to the same desire, it wound up working out a lot better for you. And instead of trying to force it when you wouldn't have been able to afford it. Another practical example that I can give you is a job interview. Say there is a job out there that is your dream job and you really want it to work out. You've applied, you've interviewed, and you're really hoping to hear back. And you're kind of in this state of please, 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 let me get it, let me get it, let me get it. And you're kind of getting a little desperate and you're grasping. And therefore, you're not looking at other avenues. You're not looking at how you can maybe supplement right now while you're waiting to hear back. You're not doing anything. You're just sitting and waiting, and you're gripping too tightly onto how it's supposed to happen. And you wind up losing that opportunity. And maybe, just maybe, you even went into that interview and somewhere along the way, you kind of flubbed it. But if you were to have gone into that interview and you were to have been completely authentic, you were to be showing up as the best version of yourself, answering the right questions and asking the right questions and being collaborative in the interview process. And then they said, okay, well, it's probably going to be a couple of days before we get back to you, but we really are considering you and we really do love your energy. And they give you kind of a little bit of a guarantee of when you might hear back. And you wait, you kind of do a couple of other things, you go on with your life, you take care of your pets if you have them, you take care of your kids if you have them, you take care of your house, you take care of other things that need your attention. And then lo and behold, you get an email or a phone call in less than the time frame that they gave you. And you got the job. It is because you switched your perspective and you switched your tactic and you weren't grasping too heavily. Even if your intuition said it's already in the bag, you didn't grasp it too heavily. You just felt into the reality of the wish fulfilled. And we can go into the idea of the wish fulfilled in another episode. I've really been wanting to talk about that, but we don't have as much time for today. But when you trust your intuition to guide your next steps, the process is so much easier than if you were to just sit there with an iron fist and be grasping onto that desire and not allowing it to happen in a natural and aligned way for you. And let's be real. Sometimes we stop trusting ourselves, not because we can't, but because we're worried about external voices. And those external voices that say, what if people think I'm doing this wrong? Or what if I fail? Are not always our true inner critic. It's an inner critic that has been created because of the voices of society, past experiences, or even that one person that is no longer in your life, but you still have some lingering feelings about. Maybe it's an ex or an old friend and you've already blocked them, or you haven't even spoken to them in so long that it doesn't even matter. But you're thinking about, oh, well, what are they going to think? Who cares what they think? It's more about what you think of yourself and how proud you are of yourself and your desire and you aligning with it than it is about what other people are going to say about your life and what you're doing. So, yes, manifestation requires self-trust. It requires that permission to be human, that permission to pivot, and that permission to try again. And here is another big truth bomb. Sometimes you are blocking yourself from what you want because you insist that it comes in a very specific way. But that rigidity is a signal to loosen your grip, not give up. Because you're meeting resistance when you have this rigid idea of how things should happen. And the universe will nudge you and say, hey, maybe there is a more aligned path here. And maybe there is a way to go about this that is much smoother. So why don't we follow that path instead of trying to manipulate an outcome? Giving yourself that permission to just be flexible and to pivot and to change tactics is so radical in a world that wants us to really hope beyond hoping. And I say that respectfully, but it asks us to be persistent, but not in a healthy way sometimes. It asks us to be more, what's the word I'm looking for? Persistence from ego as opposed to persistence from calm, persistence from certainty. And when we act with persistence from ego as opposed to persistence from certainty, we wind up actually causing more of our downfall than we do our uprising. But to acknowledge the struggle without judgment and to trust that you can still manifest without being perfect is to really understand what manifestation truly is. And when you do, and when you align those thoughts, feelings, and actions, that is when the magic starts flowing again. So as we close out this episode, here is our little takeaway for today. Manifestation is not about forcing perfection. It is about flexibility, self-trust, and the courage to pivot. So I want to leave you with this mantra, and feel free to write this down if you can. I am human. I am allowed to pivot, and I trust myself to align with what I desire. I am human. I am allowed to pivot, and I trust myself to align with what I desire. And for a journal prompt that you can take away, I give you this. Write down one area in your life where you feel the most stuck, whether that's with finances or love or jobs or whatever it is. Name the struggle and then list 3 ways in which you could pivot your approach. No judgment, no rigidity, no resistance, just curiosity and self-trust. And as always, remember that the universe isn't punishing you. It is inviting you to show up fully, creatively, authentically, and sometimes that includes changing your tactics. Thank you for sitting with me for another enlightening episode of Elaborations with SchellingtonGrin. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to share it with a friend who could use a little bit of insight, and feel free to share on Instagram and tag me in your stories. I love seeing your takeaways, and I love seeing just how these episodes change and give people different perspectives, and the discussions that people like to have about what was said in the episode and what maybe they would like to hear in future episodes. If you would like to tag me on Instagram, you can find me at SchellingtonGrin Creatrix, and I will put that username in the description box. And you can also find my Linktree link in the description box, where you will find everything else related to SchellingtonGrin, including my writings on Vocal and Medium, and even my personal website, where you can purchase your own personal tarot readings. As always, stay grounded, stay strong, stay clear about what you desire, and remember that you are the writer of your own reality, and you are beyond powerful. We will have another episode on Friday morning at the same time, so I cannot wait to see you again next time. Bye for now.